Good evening. My name is Vince Noblet, President of the Speedway Town Council. Today is September 13th, Monday, 2021. I want to call this meeting to order. First off, I'll start out with introductions. Grant Kleinhens, our town manager.
Good evening.
David Lindsay, to my immediate right.
Good evening.
Far left is Jordan Klauser.
Yep. Good evening.
And next to him is Jacob Bladesdale.
Good evening.
Town Clerk Measure. And next to him is Gary Pettico.
Good evening.
And Vice President of the Council is Gary Rakes.
Good evening.
Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Looks like I'm frozen in time.
It can only be.
Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes as on August the 9th, 2021 meeting. These minutes have been distributed to the council. There's no changes to those minutes. We'll approve them as submitted. Hearing no changes, the minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is approval of a professional service agreement with Klein Peter Consulting Group for an Office of Community and Rural Affairs Planning Grant. Grant, you want to explain that?
Yes, thank you. Members of the council, this evening there are two items on the agenda covering this Office of Community and Rural Affairs Planning Grant that we are attempting to obtain. As you know, we're looking at updating our comprehensive plan, creating a comprehensive plan next year that will be a guiding document that will help us as we plan capital improvements, various policies, growth and development in and around the community. And it's an important step in most communities' futures. The Speed Zone Master Plan, done well over a decade ago, was kind of the last, and that wasn't even necessarily a comprehensive plan, but it was similar. I know we did an economic development strategy plan a couple of years ago with Veritas Group. Those kinds of documents lead to assisting elected officials in making those decisions for the betterment of the community. So this evening, we're asking for you to consider approval of a grant agreement between the town and Klein Peter and Associates. Mike Klein Peter is the owner. This evening, we have Neil, and I'm drawing a blank on your last name. Neil Brook. He will open a public hearing in a few moments on this planning grant, but we've hired them because of their track record. They're very successful in obtaining these grants for various communities. In fact, I think they had 7 or 8 applications in this most recent round of funding, and were awarded 4 of those, so a very good percentage. I think they do their job very thoroughly. And furthermore, this grant agreement, if we don't get this grant, it doesn't necessarily cost us anything. The $6,700 fee that's associated there is really tied to whether or not the grant gets approved. It also serves as our match for the $60,000 grant. The rest would come from Okra as a grant to the community to pay those costs. We have approved that in our, at least preliminarily approved it and included it in our budget, but we would recommend go ahead, the council approving this agreement. It's been reviewed by legal counsel and is ready to go. So once approved, we'll hold that public hearing, and then the next step will be to approve a resolution at the next meeting, moving that process forward and seeking letters of support so that the grant can be submitted. I believe now the date is November 12th. November 12th. It was October 15th, but it's been delayed.
So just to be clear, we have to approve the grant, approve this before we actually have a public hearing on it?
Yeah, because we're hiring them, so this is the grant to, and once again, if we don't go for the grant or get the grant, there is no cost to the
Okay.
to the town.
Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the professional services agreement as described by our town manager.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Approve on. Is there any other discussion? Open it up for discussion.
No, I'll have just reserve questions for the public hearing portion.
Okay. Okay. All right, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the approval of the professional services agreement with Kleinpeter Consulting Group for Office of Community and Rural Affairs Planning Grant. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Neil, if you want to step forward.
And I realize the agenda does say Mike Kleinpeter, but he did send Neil in his stead this evening.
Okay.
Mr. President, it's 7:07.
Thank you. Grant, thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it, and I know Mike does. Good evening, council. My name is Neil Brook with Kleinpeter Consulting Group, and our firm is assisting the town for the grant application. The purpose of the hearing tonight is to discuss the town's application for grant funding through the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs. This public hearing was advertised in the Indianapolis Star on September 1st, 2021. There's a sign-in sheet going around, okay? So we just please ask everybody to sign it. The town is applying specifically for a comprehensive planning grant in the amount of $60,000. The town will be contributing a local match of $6,700 from the general fund. The comprehensive plan will look to identify and establish vision and goals for the next 5 to 10 years. This plan will look specifically at the following areas: land use, government and fiscal capacity, public facilities and services, placemaking, community wellness, culture, education, economic development, housing, transportation, agricultural, natural resources, parks and recreation, broadband access, and historic and archaeological resources. For our grant application, we will need letters of support from both the elected officials and residents. If any of the topics I just mentioned, you feel passionate about these, please write a letter stating that if you are in favor of the town putting together a plan for the topic and why the topic is important to you. We will include those with the grant application. We intend to submit the town's grant application on November 12th. We want to make sure that the citizens of the town are fully informed and have an opportunity to voice any concerns or support for the project and ask any questions they may have. The town will know if their planning grant is awarded by early December. With that, we can open up for public comment.
All right, thank you. Would any member have any questions for him at this point? Gary?
I guess I was wondering, our town manager described some of the success you've had. I know Kleinpeter has helped write some other grant requests in the past. I don't know that you specifically were involved, Neil, but
I remember Jacob. I remember I think the economic development one.
Yes.
so the success rate you've had recently that our town manager described, do you expect the same level of success?
I sure do. Mike has assembled, and I'm going to put myself in here, Mike has assembled a great team. I was with Okra 17 years. When I retired, I went to work for Mike, and 3 others who work for Mike were also employed by the state. So we have 75 years of experience. When Mike submits an application, there's no mistakes. We, 2 or 3 of us review it, We make sure everything is in there, and, yeah, we've had great success.
And the fee that you're charging is a 10% fee? Is that?
Yes, it's
of the-
10% of
the grant request?
60,000 plus the local match.
Okay. Is that typical?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the time?
That's the minimum, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you give us kind of a schedule of the events taking place in terms of when you submit it, when it'll be approved or denied, and then what time frame do you have in place to do all this analysis?
Okay, well, we'll, of course, submit it the 12th.
Yeah,
Unless Okra changes their dates, sometime the first couple weeks of December, we'll know the results. I will warn you that over the last year, because of everything going on, they've had moved forward dates. But Mike will keep you guys informed if they change that date. Once the grant is approved, we can sign contracts, and the engineering firm can go to work. It'll take about probably 30 to 45 days for us to get release of funds on this. But in the meantime, the engineering firm will have begun working on this. And when I say release of funds, that's when we can start paying the engineer.
okay.
So, and then, you know, I don't want to speak for the engineer. I don't know their timeline, but
Well, we haven't selected a firm at this
Right,
point. It
right.
used to be an interesting process. You had to select before you applied, go through that selection process. Now they award you, and then you go about the process of competitively selecting a consultant. So if approved in December, we will go about that selection process in December. The reality is it'll probably be concluded at the end of January, maybe the 1st
Okay.
of February, and then start sometime 30 to 45 days after, once agreements are approved. So my guess is at the end of that first quarter, we'll actually start the planning work.
Okay, so that's going to tie up 2022 at that
Yeah.
point in time.
And it'll take about a year for this work to get completed.
I would think so, yeah.
Great.
Okay,
So you're going to have adoption in March of '23.
and I
Right.
apologize, when I was with Okra, yeah, we already had an engineer.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they changed it.
That
so
just changed,
Sorry
so.
about that.
so as far as the process is concerned, you know, as far as the public input, where does that take place? All the way along?
Yeah, all the way along, and hopefully, my experience in the past is once you have an engineer on board, they will start including people from the community who have any comments, and you guys can encourage everybody during your meetings to speak up and to attend these meetings.
Yeah, typically, we'll identify a steering committee made up of a cross-section of the community and organizations. We'll then set out a communication plan where you have surveys, various digital, online access to people providing comments, as well as community stakeholder meetings with specific companies, organizations, neighborhood groups, state and federal agencies, and then you'll also have a series of public meetings. So it is very public engagement driven, and it should not be a community-driven plan, it should be a resident-driven plan. And I think that's what that concept of public engagement is centered around. Elected officials will be included and involved, whether you would sit on the steering committee or be on a subcommittee or attend meetings, that, you know, those roles can be defined and delineated as we progress.
And bottom line, when we get to the end of this, we need another public hearing to approve the plan. So hopefully by that time, everybody is aware and there's no questions, no controversies. We hope.
Okay. Okay, any other questions?
Maybe ask the public again, just in case.
Yeah. Does anybody from the audience want to comment on this at this point in time?
One other comment I would have, you know, we did do a couple of years ago this economic development strategy plan. To me, this dovetails very well with that, to build on the success of that plan its effort to really build on the success of Speedway over the past decade with downtown and all its redevelopment. This is that next logical step to kind of move in that direction of setting the vision for the next 5 to 10 years that you as elected officials will help guide and the community will get behind and we can accomplish.
And you're talking about our Main Street area of downtown Speedway.
Well, that's part of it, yes. What did I say? I'm sorry.
Downtown, I think you.
Got it, yeah, no, yeah, Speedway downtown.
Yeah, thank you.
And not just the Speedway downtown, every other element of our community, from Crawfordsville Road to the neighborhoods. There's more than a downtown. That's a big part of who we are, but.
Right. Mr. President, I'd move that we close the public hearing.
Okay. It is 7:17.
We'll probably need a second.
We're going to have a second?
Oh, sorry.
Get a second? Go ahead and close at 7:17. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I will warn you, now that this process has been approved, we have several documents that, some of it comes from Jacob, identifying the funding sources and fund balances. There's letters that need to be signed, support letters that we'll need to gather.
Mike,
Yeah, it was provided to me today, so some of that will be signed by the council president, and so those are things we'll vet over the next couple of weeks and get your approval so that we can get ready for that application on November the 12th.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick.
Great. Next on the agenda is professional services agreement with SpyGlass. Grant, you want to give us an update on that?
Yes, so this was an initiative that was started under the former town manager. He met with this company to look at ways that potentially savings and efficiencies could be identified with phones and telecommunications, et cetera, those things that we use to do our business. I met with this company almost a month ago now. They have a very interesting program. They review and audit some of our past billings from phone companies, internet, other providers, and they look for, based on our contracts, based on our agreements with them, the rates that are being charged us, whether they're accurate, whether we've been overcharged or overbilled, whether other things have been missed, and then they will recapture those funds through a process going back and contacting those providers so that we can become more efficient and save money in those areas. Sometimes it's as simple as a billing was overlooked or a line that we no longer needs to be canceled. Those will be things that they will identify, vet, do research, and then we split those savings with them based on what the agreement says. There's there's cost recovery, they will get 50% of that. Service elimination savings, they will get 12 times that. So if you save $100 a month, that fee will be $1,200. And then cost reduction, it's the same concept. So the reality is we don't have a lot of money out unless they find a lot of savings. So they'll go through that process and hopefully find things that save us funds.
Okay. I got one comment, but we need a motion first. Is there a motion for the approval of professional services agreement with SpyGlass?
Sure, I'll make the motion that we approve the audit agreement with SpyGlass Snapshot, as explained by our town manager.
Okay, in motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Got a motion and a second. I'll open up for discussion. Do you have any questions of Grant in relationship to this?
So I have a question for our clerk treasurer. Your thoughts on this? So there's some things that we've been looking at in the current building with the changing to the new building. And so we know there are some things that, like some lines that have been canceled and some things we're following up on to make sure, like some fax lines were canceled. So we're going to do that before we kind of release them to do that. But a lot of the bills can be, they're pretty thick sometimes. I mean, there's a lot that is in those. And so it's kind of a matter of following up and looking at every loose thread, having somebody that has the bandwidth to do that and also understands kind of the lingo and the billing, because I'm not saying every phone company, but sometimes they make it kind of hard to understand or know if there's a line that's not being used. They don't tell you that necessarily. So this company kind of has an expertise in reviewing that. So I think it'll be valuable. But like I said, first we want to make sure we're going to clean up what we know needs to be cleaned up, and then kind of see where that goes from there.
So based on what he said, when will they start, when we call them to tell them to start?
Yeah, when we connect with them and say we're ready to go, we'll provide those documents. So probably another couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks for us to kind of wrap, maybe a month, and then we'll provide them the
See the next billing
documentation.
cycle.
Yeah.
And then do it after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess along the same lines, I second the motion in order to have this conversation, because we're paying them 100% of what they find in terms of service elimination savings and cost reduction savings. I mean, at least 100% of the next 12 months. And if this exercise or this activity, better word for it, that you have going on at the moment, if we find that first, when we find that first, then that'll be on our list of things that are canceled.
Yeah.
But if they find other lines that aren't being used or whatever that might be, then we'd still have to pay that for the next 12 months, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, so we'll find those things that we're aware of, correct those, and those will not be included.
Okay.
That's why Jacob made that comment. We'll correct them and then wait 30 days so that,
Make sure it's out of the billing
yeah,
cycle again.
and then provide those bills for them to review.
Okay, thank you.
So it may take 2 months. Just we'll have to figure out how that looks.
So how long does this process last in terms of,
They said it takes about 30 days to review, communicate with the providers, and then come back with a list of recommendations that they have. We also don't necessarily have to move forward with every single recommendation. Some of the recommendations may not be something that we want to do, like change a provider or,
Right.
There's a whole host of ways that we can discuss that with them and decide, do we move forward on this?
So say you don't go with changing a provider, do they still charge us for that?
No. We're able to, if we don't give approval for that element to move forward, then they don't do anything with that.
And if they had success with other,
Yeah, a couple of their communities they've talked to, Fishers was one, Boone County was another. They gave me a list of those.
okay, good, Grant. Anything else?
No.
Hearing none, we'll go and move on. Next item is,
We need a vote.
Need a vote.
oh, yeah. All those in favor of approving the SpyGlass agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda is the approval of an agreement with the Roman Catholic Church, and that item, we're going to table that item for this meeting. We're going to meet with the neighborhoods and answer any public questions, give a little bit more detail out there, and make sure that everybody, the citizens that are impacted by this development are good with that. So any other comment in relationship to that? Hearing none, I'll move on to item 7, approval of claims and utility agreements. Jacob?
Yep, thank you. Claims presented to you for your consideration are those that have been presented from August 7th through September 10th. And I'm happy to take any questions or would appreciate your approval.
Mr. President, I make a motion we approve the claims as presented by our clerk treasurer.
Okay, got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Can I get a second? Any discussions on the claims as submitted by the town clerk treasurer?
Just one comment. I said I would bring up the billings to Beck Communications, and there's this is through the town, not through Tim or the SRC, but there's a bill for $1,612.50.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the claims submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, utility adjustments.
The utility adjustments are for the same period, August 7th through September 10th. There's a few of them. One was a fortunately minor misread adjustment that we made, and then there are a few misapplied payments from our payment processing company. So again, that can generate a late fee, and if that happens due to our processor, then we adjust those out. So I'd appreciate your approval on those as well.
Mr. President, I make a motion, we approve the utility adjustments as presented this evening.
Got a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a second? And is there any discussion on the utility adjustments?
Jacob, it's correct in saying they can eliminate these by signing up for auto pay, is that correct?
Auto pay helps quite a bit, yes. Yep. Because then our processor isn't, so what happens is our processor is physically looking at the check and the statement, and they're punching in the codes, and sometimes there's some errors. But if you sign up for auto pay, that is a smoother process. It happens automatically. We actually handle that process in-house, so we know it's right. And then you don't have to worry about late fees or anything like that. Do you have any personal experience with that,
I
Councilor
do.
Lindsay?
It's
Okay, all
very
right.
ironic you bring that up, Mr. Clerk Treasurer. I went off of the advice of our fire chief, and I signed up for that, so.
Wonderful.
And it's working flawlessly, by the way.
Great, good to hear. And it's kind of funny, I mentioned sometimes, that's how I pay my bill, even though I'm in that office, every weekday. I could also easily just drop off a payment, but it's easier for me to just sign up for auto pay, so that's why I pay my bill as well.
Just thought I'd get a commercial in for you.
Thank you. Yep, yep. It helps everybody. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Product placement.
Okay, again, motion and a second. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the utility adjustments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, next on the agenda is report from our department supervisors. First to lead off is Speedway Schools. John Disney is here to speak to us. Thank you, John, for coming tonight.
Yes. Thank you, Town Council, for inviting us, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight representing the School Town of Speedway Board of Trustees and Superintendent Dr. Kyle Trebley, and tell you what's going on in the schools these days. Today was the 29th day of face-to-face, in-person instruction in Speedway schools. Proud to say that. We're starting our 7th week of school. Speedway Schools has a very diverse population of students that we're very proud of. 42% of these 1,831 students are white, 28% of those students are black, 18% Hispanic, and 12% are other. 42% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunches, and 34% of our students had English not as their first language. And think about that. More than 1/3 of our students had English as not as their first language. Currently, there's 34 different languages being spoken in Speedway schools, 34 different languages. And we're trying to teach them English, by the way. We're getting to some sense of normalcy in our 7th week of school after what we've been through. Very, very positive atmosphere in all the buildings. We've been in all the buildings every week. Each year we start our schools with a open house. In some schools it's called open house. Some schools it's called a back to school night, an ice cream social. And I'm here to report to you tonight that our attendance at those things were not as good as before the pandemic. It was actually better. We required parents to show up in masks to go through this to protect our staff and to protect each other. And our attendance at our open house, our back-to-school nights was best it's been in the past several years. I think parents want to be in schools and see how their kids are doing. So it was a very positive open house for all of our buildings, not just our elementary schools, which usually has the highest attendance, but also in our junior high and our high school.
John, can I ask you a question? Did you do anything extra to kind of make folks aware to get them back? I mean,
Glad you asked that question. We have a very new communication system called Parent Square, which is getting rave reviews by our parents. Yeah, way to tee it up for me. By our parents and for our staff. Our staff is loving it also. If something happens in school, we can immediately get that out and alleviate some of the questions or concerns that would happen. An example would be a fender bender that happened outside of Allison Elementary School recently. Principal Bedwell quickly got on Parent Square, emailed our Parent Square and emailed parents, and immediately there was a calm because they knew what was going on. Our junior high currently has 317 students. I've been here for 21 years. That's the highest ever. 317 students in the junior high school. I don't have much data past 20-something years, but in other words, the junior high is busting at the seams compared to what it's been in the past. We have our largest class of 167 students, and Gary or Vince, maybe you know more about it, but that's one of the largest classes that I'm aware of in a long time. Our high school is 542 students. 542 students, which is also one of the largest our high school's been, or the largest our high school has been in more than a decade. Proud to say that our clubs and activities are starting and they're going well. Currently, our high school football team and our junior high football team is undefeated. The junior high football team has 32 students involved with it, which is a good number for us. There's 34 cross-country runners at our junior high school.
Wow.
I'm sorry about using my phone just a minute ago, but was getting updates. Our 7th grade volleyball team just won the county in Marion County for volleyball. So that happened as we were having our meeting just a few minutes ago. So they're Marion County champions.
Wow.
At our high school, extracurriculars are going very well. Like I said, our football team is undefeated, and there's an excitement going on there that hasn't happened in a few years. Our boys' soccer team is ranked 9th in the state. Our girls' soccer team is ranked 7th in the state. Our high school girls' golf team just won the conference for the 3rd year in a row, so things are going well there. This year, we added a strength and conditioning coach. We were 20 years behind. We should have done that 20 years ago. But we hired a strength and conditioning coach for Speedway High School. Person teaches strength and conditioning to an advanced PE class during the day. Our athletes are scheduled into, and those that can't because of classes are taking strength and conditioning either before school or after school with him. And we can see immediate results with that. Can't wait to see what happens once we've done this for 2 or 3 years in a row. So as you can see, the school year is off to a great start. We can't wait to see what happens as the school year goes along. And at this point, I'll answer any questions that you have.
I'll open it up. Any
Those are all,
questions for John?
those are all great reports, John. Thanks for that. You and I have had separate conversations, not necessarily tonight. How are things going as it relates to COVID? What measures are we taking? I know you might want to expound on that a little bit.
I can do that. I am the COVID guy for our school system. Every case, we cited this when it first started, the pandemic first started, that any time that we would have a COVID case in our schools, that we'd have one central location that we'd go through, which would be me, to make sure we're sending out similar messages from all of our schools. Currently, as we speak today, or right now, we have 8 positive cases in our corporation. There's some neighboring schools that have hundreds of positive cases. We have 8 positive cases in our corporation. Tomorrow at this time, we'll have 6. 2 of those will return to school tomorrow. At the end of the day, Wednesday, we'll have 2 positive cases unless there's another student or staff. So when I say 8, these aren't just students. These are students and staff. When they changed the rules used to be if you were in close contact, and close contact was defined as being within 6 feet of someone for 15 accumulative minutes. So if you were in 6 feet of someone for 15 accumulative minutes, you were considered a close contact. And the Center for Disease Control, the Indiana Department of Health, and the Marion County Health Department set out a guideline, said if you were considered a close contact, you must quarantine for, it used to be 14 days, now it's 10 days. So since the beginning of the year, we were sending students home that were considered a close contact. Many of those kids may be well students. Most of them were well students, but they were sitting beside someone that was positive. When the governor sent out his executive order last week, we chose to start having students wear masks and staff wear masks. The reason why we did that was it eliminated the close contact. The new CDC guidelines, the new Indiana Department of Health guidelines, and the Marion County Health guidelines, and that's what people need to understand. CDC sends it out, it goes to the Indiana Department of Health, and as you know, Marion County is sometimes much more stringent. But each one of those organizations said if everyone's wearing a mask, then you have to be inside 3 feet for 15 cumulative minutes to be considered a close contact. So I'm here today to say of those 8 positive cases, we have 1 close contact, and that person was a close contact outside of school. So they were close contact by their what was going on in their home. So at one time, we were sending home about 25 or 30 students a week that were well students. Our highest was 52 students that were considered a close contact that were made to stay home for 10 days because we had to follow those guidelines. I'm here to report to you today there's no students in Speedway schools that are being sent home considered to be a close contact. And by those numbers that I'm telling you, I hope you can see that schools are a very safe place for students and staff to be as long as we follow the guidelines that's recommended by our healthcare professionals, which is what we've done since day one.
How does this relate to other school systems?
They think we have some kind of magic potion. So I'm on a conference call with people weekly. There's some schools that have shut down. There's some buildings that have shut down. Schools to our west of us have hundreds of cases of COVID. I really don't have the magic bullet of why that's done, other than I think we follow the guidelines that's set forth to us. And you know, if a person was a close contact and was symptomatic, we tell them they need to stay home, and for the safety of all of us. And when we went to mask, there are some people that aren't happy with that. I'll be transparent. There's some people that aren't happy with that. But there's a lot of people who said, thank you. You know, if that's going to keep my kid in school and I don't have to tell them they have to go home because they were sitting beside someone that was positive, I think it's worked out well so far.
I would think not having buses also is a contributor.
Those incubation tubes that you put them on in the morning and the afternoon, yes, I think that is very much a positive for us, yes.
Great. Any other questions for John?
Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you for your report. I appreciate keeping us and the public informed. It's great to hear good news.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats.
Next up, Tim Kropp, our Executive Director, Redevelopment Commission.
They're always so nice to me. Quite a few things to update you tonight, this evening. Start with the Wilshaw. I'll mix it up a little bit. I usually end with that, but there is some progress being made there. We are having direct communication with the developer, Drew Loftus. I'm personally calling him every week, and we're getting better updates now. Funding is progressing as anticipated. It's obviously, we've reported it's taken longer than we initially thought it would, but it's a complicated case they've been working through and doing their due diligence. We are still waiting. Really, the piece we're waiting on is the rating agency to come back, and at this point, it should be any time, hopefully this week. With that said, loan and sales documents have been drafted, and they're waiting to place the ratings information into those documents prior to distributing those. So once that gets completed, this is one of the final pieces to get everything finalized, and then we will work on a timeline from that point. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Everything's looking good, but as we know with this project, there's always twists and turns. So we'll keep you posted. We will let you know as soon as we know that things have been settled on the financing side or if things have taken a different direction. But right now, we feel pretty good about it. We're in communication with the partners, and hopefully we'll have a little better information here in the coming weeks. Any questions on the Wilshaw? Okay. We'll shift to Founders Square. We were able to announce that finally that Freddy's Burgers and Custard are coming out to the corner of High School and Crawfordsville Road. Their site work should be starting any time. You've probably seen the erosion control up there, and they're anxious to get started on that project sooner than later. So look for additional activity, and also in that area, just when you're in Founders Square now, we have a lot of traffic going to Aldi's. There's also Aldi. I just corrected, there's no S. There is quite a bit of construction traffic that will be increasing over the next few weeks. And so just be careful when you're driving through there and entering into the grocery store. We have also let the construction crews to reminding them that there's pedestrians coming through there as well. So there is a staging setup on the north side of where the construction is for construction vehicles and material. So there is some cross traffic there on Founders Square Lane. So just something to be heads up about. In addition, the Hampton Inn and Conference Center has resubmitted their drawings. Just a reminder, they were going to do a steel structure. Steel costs came in significantly higher, so they've kind of revamped it to be more of a traditional concrete structure. Which then changed the footprint, which had to go through the whole process again. So they've resubmitted, they're ready to move forward, and we're looking at scheduling something in the beginning of October to have an official groundbreaking for that project as well. So we'll be in touch with additional details on that, but they are anxious to start their site work as well, and hopefully get a lot of their utility work done prior to the winter season so they can be working on the hotel during winter.
Tim, you remarked that there's a structural change, but the look of the building inside now is still the same, correct? Just a little bit bigger because of the wall thickness.
Everything's the exact same. The only difference is concrete's thicker than steel, so it just affected the size of the building a little bit. But
Thank you.
It'll look like the exact same building, just built a little bit differently. So on 1300 block, there was a little bit of a gap there where we were working out some utilities, figuring out what we need to do, but they have been released to put footers in place and the infrastructure is being installed. So there should be quite a bit of activity out on that site on the 1300 block project, and you'll start seeing some of the shape of the concrete footers and the main slab. That being said, when they were digging out, connecting to the new sewer, there was a little bit of a collapse and took out a little bit of our sidewalk, unfortunately. So we had to go ahead and close the 1300 block sidewalk down in front of the project. We were diverting people across the street at 14th Street and 13th Street to kind of go around that at this time. And as soon as we can, we'll try to reopen that sidewalk. But for the time being, for safety reasons, that sidewalk is closed. And then on the 1400 block, where we're redoing the stamp, we're taking out the bricks and putting in stamped concrete. They're going to start demolition this week. Our street department, thanks to Rob and his crew, is taking out the benches and trash cans. Those will all be going back. I've gotten that question a few times. And we're also moving a couple trees that are just in where the reconfiguration is going to be. So there's going to be a couple street trees that will come down. Those will be replaced in their new locations with new trees. And just so everything will be as is today, just a little bit different configuration. That'll start this week. We have a meeting tomorrow, actually. The biggest delay on that project has been we want to make sure for the long-term maintenance, color, and upkeep that we get whatever the stamped concrete is correct. It has to be ADA compliant, and we want to make sure that, you know, wear and tear on that's going to hold up over time. So we have a meeting with the actual concrete contractors tomorrow to go through and make sure we're making that right decision. We don't want to rush it and then find out we should have gone a different way. So after tomorrow, they should be starting on that project. On-street parking will be closed, probably not for very long, as they pour the new concrete. Once the on-street portion is done, we will close down the parking lot to reconfigure that and repave that. So we'll always try to keep as much parking as possible open. We know it's tight there with both the 1,300 block project and the 1,400 block projects going on. So we'll continue to communicate through Cheryl as to what's available, and we'll try to keep it open and keep our closures to a minimum. And then the last project is 10th and Castle. We've ordered our decorative poles, and bids are due 10 o'clock next Monday for our portion of that project. And then the SRC will have a recommendation at their meeting next week. With that being said, people don't realize everything that's going on, but right now, Allison Transmission has 6 open projects going on. They've added a few just here recently as well. So they're investing significantly in that campus and our community. And we're keeping up with them and making sure we get inspections and coordination of projects. But there's just a lot going on that campus, and we appreciate them doing those investments. There was an article in the IBJ about the new vehicle emissions testing that they just built is already getting adapted for additional conditions and testing for electric vehicles. So a lot of innovation, technology being done here right in Speedway, and we appreciate their investments. But that's also a lot of coordination and a lot of construction traffic in that 10th Street corridor. So please be mindful of construction vehicles and people working in the street, because traffic can get going pretty quickly there, and there's going to be additional traffic working in that area over the next several months. With that, I'll take any questions.
The 10th and Castle project that bids Monday, when will that work be started this year, or is that a spring project?
2 factors in that. One, we don't know what bids are coming back. With our parking lots, we had to rebid it. So if costs come in significantly higher because people just don't need the work, or we don't get bids, that could delay our portion. And then we have ordered the poles, but there is a significant delay on receiving materials. So if that gets delayed too far into the fall, wintertime, that could also affect that being pushed to the springtime. So I'd like to say it's going to start here this fall, but there is an outside chance that it could get pushed into the spring.
So when you say poles, you're talking about the light poles?
Yeah, the decorative light poles and the stream poles for the intersection. So those are decorative special order poles, and the cost of those were significantly higher than just when we did them at 25th and High School. They're the exact same poles, but just that short amount of time, cost increase.
What's the status of them burying the electric lines?
I don't have a good timeline for that. That it was actually supposed to have started already. The hurricane down in Louisiana pulled a lot of the crews down south. So we have some, I don't know if you've noticed out at Founders Square as well, they're burying lines up there, and they've put the conduit in, but they haven't come back to take those lines down as well. So those projects are just delayed here. Last I understood, they have already started that, but I think you're probably about a month behind what they were anticipating on the electric poles being buried.
I did see some underground work being done. It looked like conduit, but to that point, I mean, the lines, all the power is still up in the air, but they're just getting looks like the conduit down.
Yeah, they'll actually put kind of a casing in the ground first, and that's where they'll run all the new power before they ever pull anything off the poles. So.
Is there any requirements to shift traffic away from 10th Street, or?
There shouldn't be, because where the IPL AES Indiana, I guess it is now, requires it to go in an easement behind the right-of-way. So it's actually in a 10-foot easement behind the right-of-way. So really that work should be nowhere near the actual road, other than if there's a vehicle or something parked on the edge.
Okay.
Tim, I'm not sure if this is your question, Rob's question, or Grant's question, or someone else, but I'm sure that this is somewhat of a moving target for us, but going west on Crawfordsville Road, turning left into, I guess that's Marketplace?
Yep.
Which is where the Get-Go and Courtyard and those properties are. The left turn lane there is extremely short. Most of the time when I'm turning in there for different reasons, business reasons, and just to get fuel, you might get 3, 4 at the most vehicles through, and sometimes if someone's playing on their phone, which they shouldn't be, it might be 2. Is there anything, and I'm sure it's going to change as we have more traffic going in different areas there. Do you have any suggestions or who we should talk to on that?
I just did that turn today. I was the third car, and 4 of us got through. There's several factors. To answer your question, we absolutely will and have relayed that message to look at that timing, because we have the same issues we've relayed at 25th and High School, turning south onto High School from 25th. So all that is interconnected, obviously, and it's just some priorities. Those are both Indianapolis lights, so the best we can do is relay those concerns and have them come out and look at the timing and lighting of all the different directions. I don't know the actual reasoning behind that particular one. I will say it's short, other than it's kind of a secondary turn-in, so I don't think their intent is to get too many cars in there and delay anytime you add time one direction, you're delaying it somewhere else. So some of that is policy of how DPW handles their lights, but we will absolutely reach out to Nathan Sheets and his crew again and relay that message, and have done so.
Because even the problem that Councilor Lindsay had for years turning right on High School, by extending that turn lane and distance, that helped that. But actually now we have that left-hand turn lane that's backing up into the straight line, or the through traffic lane. So folks aren't getting through there as well. So it continues to be a challenge.
And this won't affect that turn, but I did see a report that I think the Dandy Trail Bridge is getting ready to open.
Looks
back
close,
up,
yeah.
so that should help some of the high school traffic coming up, so.
Thank you.
We will definitely relay that message back, and Rob probably has better connections than I do, so we'll work together and make sure.
We've spoken to Nathan before on it. I believe they're aware of, we gave him kind of a list a few months ago of some issues that we had that we'd like to get taken care of, and it's communications not always coming back as fast as we'd like it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? That's him? Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Next up, Chief Campbell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You know, I usually like to save this report for when Norm's here at the meeting, but I'm sure Rob will take it to him. But, you know, as we moved our drug drop-off box up to this lobby, so far this year, we've had 222 3/4 pounds of pharmaceuticals and other drugs. But in 2020, we had 310 pounds. Our record was 2015 with 502 3/4. Norm was really excited that night, but you know, even on those, when you do the math, that's an incredible amount of pharmaceuticals that's not going down to down to Norm's place.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
October 23rd is shredded, 10-1, and it will be at 1410 North Lyndhurst. You know, that just works better for traffic, you know, for people to get in and get out. So, and we're going to put, I know Cheryl, you know, is going to put out some more information, but just as a heads up, that is Shred-It Day. You know, we look at this as a security issue for people to get rid of items that you just don't want floating around out there and, you know, make you the target of something you don't want to have happen. You know, my last one is we're still trying to fill 2 vacancies. I've kind of at the last meetings told you it's been a struggle between polygraph and background investigation. We've got maybe 2, and you know, we've pretty much diminished that list, which speaks highly again to the fact that right now people don't want to be the police. But we're going to continue to do what we can do. And you know, the pendulum will swing. And part of the problem is everybody around us is recruiting. IMPD put on a class. I know Westfield, Greenwood, you name it, and there's only a pool to draw from. So that's what I got.
Any questions for the chief? No,
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Fishburne.
Good evening. I will be brief. A couple of things. First off, I want to thank, we had so many citizens that either stopped by the station or sent a card for 9/11, brought their kids by and especially want to thank Mike Bates and Doug Bowles from the IMS for opening up the parking lot on Saturday for us to have a couple of hours. Had a lot of people stopping off on Main or in the USAC parking lot and walking around and talking to the guys, and it was just a neat way. There was an event at the Motor Speedway, and we had the Garrison flag up there. And Cheryl, thank you for helping with some of the communication on that. But it just, it just is always heartwarming, and on the 20th anniversary especially. So wanted to let you know that we brought on a new firefighter the middle of last month, and we got notification on Friday that our other candidate passed his conditional offer, physical, psychological, all of that. And he'll be coming on at the end of October because we're losing a guy to IFD. And that's fine. I always encourage people, if you want to be on a bigger department and you want to be on a specialty team and those things, it's understandable. You don't begrudge guys. You're glad for the time that you had them. So, we've got 2 new guys coming on, very, very well prepared. The gentleman that we just brought on, we don't lose to the academy because he actually had been a part of a Marion County Academy. So we don't lose him for those 20 weeks to the academy. We're able to plug him right in, already an EMT, all of those things. And so we have that also going on. Very, very happy to help with Shred It because it really does flow good. The tents and some of the stuff they use, we store there anyway, and it gives, people being there. This past weekend, the Relay for Life, I don't think they could have had better weather, and our guys just had a lot of comments about how well that it went. I'm not the police chief, but a lot of times we have people coming up to the station and they want to use the restrooms and things like that, but those were open. The noise level wasn't bad at all, and it just seemed like that was a really good event. So we're looking forward to being a part of Community Day, helping Tammy Smith out at the end of this month, with the Touch a Truck. That's the 30th from 5 to 8, and I know she's excited about that and is involved in police and fire and whoever can get them a big truck, because kids like those. So. Also, on a personal note, I appreciate the notes and the comments and the emails and the text for my wife and I. It's been a long couple weeks, but very, very much appreciated. Just a note or just a phone call. So thank you very much. If you don't have any questions, that's all I've got.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Chief.
Hey, Chief.
Rob, it looks like you're up.
Good evening. Just to add on what Tim was talking about with the lights, the last pole I ordered took 3 to 4 months just to get the one pole. So 10 street lighting may take a little longer than anticipated. And we'll start off with water. Their surface plant is running fine. It's business as usual with that. And they treated 26 million gallons of water last month. And they're working on getting everything set up for main breaks. Season's coming quick with their inventory and maintenance of whatever they got to take care of, backhoe, truck, to get it ready for main break season. And that's all I had for water. Treatment plant, they're running just fine, business as usual. They treated 119 million gallons of water that was put back into Eagle Creek. So that's positive there. And in the street department, we're still cleaning sewers throughout town. The asphalt project for this year will be starting Wednesday. There's already been postings put out for no parking in the areas that they're starting. They're starting on Vinewood. So they'll start there. They'll get the short section of Meadowwood done. That includes curb, sidewalk, mill and resurface of the street. So it's going to be a great improvement for the neighborhood there. And that's about all I have.
Any questions for Rob?
Thanks, Rob.
Have a great evening.
Okay. Cheryl? Good evening.
Well, I eliminated a lot of my things as we were talking because everyone was really short and concise this time, so I didn't want to ramble on and on, so.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah. A couple of events that we have coming up, Speedway Bike Nights. This is hosted, as you know, by Todd and Janet Cunningham. We have 2 more left, September 15th and October 20th. They are held on Main Street and run from 6 to 9 p.m. Just to note, this week's bike night will be on the south part of Maine, around the Daredevil area, due to some upgrades being done in the 1400 block area. The second event is the Oktoberfest, and this one is hosted by USAC. There's not a whole lot of information that I've put out there yet intentionally because we're still working on some of the final details. But a summarization of it is in conjunction with the Indianapolis 8-Hour Challenge at IMS, which is October 15th through the 17th. The Oktoberfest that will be on Main Street will be on Friday, October 15th. Festivities will take place on Main Street from 13th to 16th Street. There is a private function, and it's an award ceremony that's by invitation only. However, there's a public event, and it sounds pretty cool. So they'll be featuring some of the cars showcased on Main Street. There'll be broths to purchase, a beer garden, and there is a free concert featuring Clayton Anderson. USAC also reached out to the local Main Street businesses and invited them to participate if they would like to. The public event will begin at 6 o'clock. The concert is at 8, and everything should wrap up around 10 o'clock. So as I said, keep checking back with the town website and Facebook pages for additional updates as we get closer. Any questions on that specifically? No?
No, sounds great.
Okay.
If I might say something about Cheryl, I've really appreciated her willingness to get out and meet with the business community and different community leaders. So this morning, her and I both met with Chris Hill at Dawson's, and we're going to try to do that over the next 2-3 weeks. But it's been good to have someone who's willing to go out, listen, and she really listened way more than she spoke, which is a good thing, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth. We should listen to concerns, and I thought it was very beneficial, and I wanted to thank her for that.
You're
and
welcome.
Look forward to continuing that. And I know Tim and I have talked about going to Praxair and Allison's and other big manufacturers and employers just to try to make sure we understand what's going on.
Yeah,
Good.
To that, there's really, the only intent, and from my perspective of doing that, is making sure that what I'm communicating to the businesses specifically, they're getting it in the format they want, that they're getting it in a timely manner, and that they know I'm available for questions and how can we work together from the town perspective. So, thank you, Grant.
Yeah.
A little bit on that same topic. So the community news, event announcements, local happenings, any of that kind of information for Speedway you can find on the website and the Facebook, and we've been trying really hard to get all of that out there. Some of the popular postings that we've had, just in case you've missed them, go out and check them out. The 911 remembrances that Chief Fishburne mentioned, a lot of positive action on that. Freddie's announcement, everyone is excited about the addition of Freddie's. The traffic and road notices that we put out there, whether it's for a town event or construction or IMS events, it seems the community really appreciates that. So if there's any questions, just refer back to the website for all those updates. One that we put out there today was on street light enhancements. Jacob, were you going to touch on that, or did you want me to cover that?
Go for it.
Okay, and then you can interject. So a post we put out today is AES Indiana is changing all of the street lights, not the poles, but the light bulbs, basically, and making them energy-efficient LED bulbs. And what I've researched on it, the LED bulbs are more efficient than the traditional bulbs, reducing the energy consumption by quite a bit. They have a longer lifespan and require less maintenance on a regular basis, which in the end will be a cost savings. The conversion project will save 246,000 kilowatt hours per year, which equates to energy to power about 20 homes. That's really all I had on that. Oh, one more thing, because there was a comment on Facebook on this initially. The LED head fixtures produce less light pollution because of the way the lights are strategically placed, which helps eliminate some of the light pollution.
I just got a comment because they changed the one across from our house, and
Okay.
it's a lot brighter. I mean, and we might even have to pull the curtains a little shut because I don't need a night light anymore, from that standpoint. But it's great.
Good.
It's
good.
great.
Yeah, I think the brightness or the location, Jacob, weren't you addressing some of that with the?
I've asked them where there are areas where, because there's a light at the end of my driveway, but going the other direction, that I looked and thought, okay, I think light has always been going that way, but because the high pressure sodium bulbs that they used to have were kind of just a kind of dimmer, more yellow color, it wasn't as noticeable. So I've asked AES if there's anything that we can do to kind of maybe shield in areas where it's becoming a nuisance. But they do cite that because it's a lighter light that I don't know what studies they have, but that it tends to be more add to security because it is a brighter light.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So, but to the extent that people are maybe not so pleased with it as you are.
No, I'm happy about it.
Yeah. But I have asked them what options we have in case there's a problem there.
So again, that is on the Facebook page on the website, and it provides Jacob's phone number directly for questions for that. And these are just a couple items that I wanted to mention. They are postings, but it's more of recognizing folks or departments. Rob had mentioned the road work and the sidewalks being done. That was part of an award or a grant that from Community Crossing Investment Grant that the street department received for $260,000, $800. So let's see, and that Rob already went over the dates for that. Speedway resident Bev Catter-Henry was recently honored at the Indianapolis Mayor's Community Service Awards ceremony for her work with the Speedway Trails. And the Parks and Rec Department received $4,000 sponsorship donation from Speedway Lions Club, and that helps support the Concerts of the Park program. And finally, a lot of the updates that you see include videos, and those are done by Brian Pierce and Bill P., the SCT cable guys, and they do a really good job. I've been working with them a lot lately, so just wanted to shout out for them. So that's all I have, unless questions.
Any other questions for Cheryl?
No?
I'll just mention, the video that we put together, Bill did, and somehow it comes out coherent, but usually I just stand in front of the camera and just start just a stream of consciousness, and somehow they turn it into like an actual narrative, and so that's the only reason that video might make some sense.
Yeah, Jacob's up for an Emmy, I think.
Wow.
Okay, moving on. Town manager's report, Grant?
Yes, I do have just a couple of comments from Tammy Smith. She couldn't be here this evening. Some of them were already mentioned tonight, but the last concert is at Meadowood Park this Thursday, the 16th, from 6 to 8. It's ensembles from the Philharmonic Orchestra of Indianapolis. Also, that will be the last market in the park for the season, the farmers market. Youth basketball is open for registration, 3rd through 6th grade, girls and boys. Registration can be found on the town's website. And then I think it was Chief talked about the Touch of Truck event on September the 30th. I know Tammy's been working very hard on that and should be a great community event. On to my report. We are seeking out several different grant funding opportunities this evening. We did have a public hearing, and we approved the process of applying for a planning grant through OKRA. We're also looking at an EDA ARPA tourism grant for potential improvements around the west side of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Georgetown Road, as well as trying to connect pedestrian traffic to Main Street and our other trail system. That is due in January. We're also looking at several road improvements potentially through the Metropolitan Planning Organization. There's a call for projects that are due October 15th. I've sought input from the council in looking at those comments and what projects feasibly could be. I think we're focused in on improvements on Crawfordsville Road, potentially looking at Cunningham, but also along the thoroughfare itself, and then looking at Crawfordsville and Lyndhurst for an intersection improvement. Work will continue on those, and that will be brought to the council hopefully for approval for those grant applications in early October. We did hire a replacement wastewater superintendent for Norm Berry, who is leaving in January. Brad Sloan has been with the town for about 18 months. We held a series of internal interviews. Councilor Pettigo, Jacob Blaisdell was involved in that. I thought those interviews were good. Brad brings a wealth of experience to us, around 20 years of different wastewater treatment experience, and has the respect of our employees. I think he'll do a great job over the next couple of months getting up to speed. And then we did accept, unfortunately, the resignation of our water superintendent, Luke Adams, this week. Luke is looking at different opportunities and will be sorely missed. So Jacob has started putting together that job announcement, job description. We will get that out for an internal posting over the next couple of weeks and hopefully interview in early to mid-October for that replacement. Also looking at a possible chili cook-off for town employees in October. I love chili personally. I think everyone's excited, and we're working on trying to get that. Once again, trying to build morale, feeling of being a member of the team, and I know I've had a couple of suggestions about let's look at doing some breakfast meetings, and I know that's in the plan. So that's something we'll work towards. Once again, trying to get to know everyone, get everyone to know each other, and then work better and more effectively together. That's my report this evening, unless you have any other questions.
I got one comment. I know for the MPO that we looked at Lyndhurst and Crawfordsville Road, but we were looking at in short term about a turn signal or some way of eastbound on Crawfordsville Road off of Lyndhurst, because of even though it's a delayed signal, you're still taking your life in your hands. When
I believe that was one we also included.
We're looking at
all four.
All four.
Yeah, so I think we've communicated with Jason.
Even turn it on Lyndhurst,
Yeah.
east and westbound. I mean, to me,
It's dangerous.
cost-effective solution
Yeah.
to some issues that we've had there.
Which street?
Yep.
I know we're tying up the police department all the time with accidents there, you know. We can hear them, so. Yeah.
Yeah, the truth about these MPO grants is they're 5 years out, you know, so major improvements, we have to do something in the interim to try to take care of issues where we can.
Right.
Light timing, adding heads, those types of things, so,
And that's where we'll deal with Nathan Sheets on most of those
yeah.
issues.
And also slowing down the traffic around the roundabout. Hopefully, we can come up with some solution that will work on that for an interim at that point.
Working on it, so
Okay.
Chief offered up stop sticks.
That'd work, Chief. That would work.
It would.
Yeah.
We might have another problem, though.
All right.
Contract with a tow
No other
service.
questions for Grant? We'll move on to a report from the council members. Gary Pettigo.
Short and sweet this evening, donate blood if you can. And that's it.
Okay. Eileen Fisher is out today. Councilor David Lindsay.
Nothing to report this evening.
And Vice President Gary Riggs.
Just a couple things, won't be quite so short as the other two councilors, but I'm wearing a mask this evening, and I want to explain why, and actually I was kind of encouraged by John Disney from the schools. I have a family member that's going through some family, some health issues, and I'm with that family member probably 3 to 4 times a week, and I'm about 3 feet from my fellow counselors here, and when I'm in other meetings, I try to stay at least that or further. But just to the points that John Disney made earlier, I'm just trying to protect kind of myself from either contracting or carrying COVID and passing it on to this family member. So that's the reason, and I think all of us have the right to do what we feel with those masks, unless directed by the Fed, the state, as John Disney outlined this evening. But I just wanted to make it clear why I am wearing this mask. Secondly, I want to thank Jacob and his office for extending their hours of service to residents of the town and others. I think you're opening up your Mondays, your hours of service will be 9 to 6, and you're going to work the lunch hour, which is some added hours, so that's very much appreciated. Then on Tuesday through Thursday, you start a little bit earlier. I'm sorry, Tuesday through Friday, you start at like 7:30 and go to 4:30, but again, you're still open for lunch, so you're extending your hours, so we thank you for that.
Yeah, we haven't really announced that yet, but.
So I just did.
But no, yeah.
So
no,
I apologize
we're
if
already doing that. Yeah, so a lot of folks participated in a survey that we sent out, and we were able to gather a lot of feedback. And I proposed a few times in that survey, but also just asked, is there just general comments or feedback? And a lot of the feedback was really just trying to get some hours, even if sporadically, outside of the normal 8 to 5 hours because that's kind of a typical work block for a lot of people. So we've kind of looked at and talked with my staff and kind of what's going to work with them, and then trying to expand on what folks want. And also kind of just looking at foot traffic that we have. We have a lot of contractors that want in early, and of course, being open, we've been closed for lunch from 1 to noon before I was clerk treasurer. That's been kind of the hours for a while. So we are going to be open during lunch now, and so the hours will become. We'll be putting this out on paper and through social media and all that kind of stuff. But the new hours will be 9 to 6 on Monday, primarily because that's typically when we have evening meetings, SRC, town council. And then for the rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday will be 7:30 to 4 o'clock. And again, open during lunch throughout those times. So I appreciate everybody that's given that feedback, especially people that took a few extra moments when they were doing the survey to write that feedback in, that they like, every now and then a little bit of time after or some time before. And certainly a lot of folks wanted us open during lunch. The last thing I'll mention is that a lot of people were saying, hey, appreciate everything you've been doing during COVID to kind of allow us to call and get a permit or call and pay. You can now pay over telephone 24/7 through an automated system that we rolled out. So people were appreciating that and kind of just, hey, if there's something I can do without even coming in at all, that's even better. So appreciate people mentioning that, and that's something we're going to continue doing as well.
So I'm sorry for putting that out there a little earlier.
Sorry to separate your time there.
I misunderstood a communication earlier, so
we have put it
my
out there,
bad.
but we're going to. No,
I apologize
that's great.
for that.
That's great.
But the key here is that you and your staff are doing a great job of bending to what the public needs, and so we appreciate that. So thank you. Another item I wanted to mention was just to the point that Tim talked about Allison Transmission. We have a great corporate partner there, and just anytime you get an opportunity to thank someone who works there or whatever, it's amazing. They, on top of all the money they're spending in our town, which equates to bringing us more tax revenues, which is a great thing, they're also donating people's time to build homes. We've built 4 homes in Speedway over the last, it's been a couple years since we built our last one, but there's been 4 homes built here at Speedway for something called Fuller Center for Housing. There's been some other homes that are built just east of Speedway. They're building another one this fall. They donate 24 people's time for 2 weeks to do that, plus another cash donation of tens of thousands of dollars. They're an amazing company that's right here in our front and backyard. Also wanted to thank Beverly Catterhenry. It was mentioned earlier the celebration that the mayor of Indianapolis did in honoring her, but she is a great resident, great business person, and just continues to give to our community. And then finally, 9/11 was anybody that wasn't alive in 2001 when that occurred. I certainly heard all of us talk about that. Cheryl, I saw your hand raised in the background. I think you were here in 2001. But I don't know about you, but for me, it was, it took me back to that moment. And I think for everyone, wherever they were when they found out that, and the way that our country and our state and our community recognized those people then who gave their lives, and since then, the military folks and other first responders and whatnot, thank you for that. And I just want to make sure I made a point of that, the importance of remembering that day. And that's it.
Thank you. Just final report. I just want to publicly acknowledge our police department and the job that they've done recently on several occasions, getting in front of a couple specific incidents. And I think it goes back to, you see something, whether it's in the park, at school, whatever, you say something. And we've got a great department in our fire department and police department of responding to these incidences. And if it's nothing, it's nothing. But in this case, it was something. And basically, because they responded in a professional manner, they were able to, really quell something else that could happen and it would turn bad. And I think, again, it goes to the professionalism of our Speedway Police Department and the way that they're looking out for the public. And thank you, Chief, and I really want to thank all the members of the police department and the job that they've been doing in keeping the bad guys at bay from the town of Speedway. And I know it's definitely a tough job to do and to stay in front of it at that point in time. And also applaud the public for getting involved. And, like I was telling Jacob, I'm glad to see brighter lights out there in the streets, because, the bad guys don't like operating under a light. And I think whatever we do to help you do your job, it just makes our community a lot safer. And we've got a lot to be proud of in this community. Our school system, as just demonstrated by John Disney, everything is moving together. And I know that this council is moving forward with a lot of improvements, and it's just staying steady and putting these improvements one after another, whether it be roads or events or whatever that we all know that we need to improve and keep improving, because the time that you stop improving, you're basically going backwards. So I just wanted to end that with this. And again, thank you, Chief. And Bob, thank you for all the work that you guys do in terms of the fire department. And keep it up. If you can keep up with the chief, you're doing a good job, I'm trying. He's trying? Okay. That's all I have. There's no other, it's 8:24. I'm going to call for adjournment.